What's up guys, welcome back to Flight Sim Academy. Today we're going to look at the flight planner and we're going to plan a flight in the 787 and go through a quick takeoff. We are going to go today from Manchester to Edinburgh. Now once you've chosen your departure and your arrival in the flight planning window where we are now, you have to choose IFR, High Altitude Airways, and that'll give you the option to plan your departure, your arrival and your approach. Once you've selected that, you can then choose whether you spawn at the parking gate or on the runway. We're going to choose on the runway simply because then we don't have to taxi. Once you've selected that, you can choose a departure. It doesn't matter which one you choose. We're going to choose the pole departure because I know it goes roughly in the right direction. ILS for runway 24 and any old arrival into Edinburgh. Whichever you choose, the flight planner is going to join it up for you, as you can see here, and it will give you the waypoints in between. So it doesn't matter which one you choose, the flight planner will do it for you, and you get a little representation on your screen here. So once you've done that, you've set your flight conditions, you are good to go. And once you're ready, click on Fly. Alright guys, when you're loaded, you'll see that we are spawning on the runway 23 left in Manchester. And we'll just go have a look at this. We'll hide the yoke and we will have a look in our FMC, see whether our flight plan has loaded. So quick look here then on the ident page. This is the page on your FMC when the aircraft powers up. This is what you're having a look at. We don't really need to have too much of a look at that one. There's nothing to fill out. On the position initialization page, we have to enter a few details here about your departure airport and your current GPS position. Once that's done, you can go ahead and have a look at the route that's loaded. So we're in route 1 page and it's from Manchester to Edinburgh from 23 left. Flight number isn't really important, so we can then go on to the next page using this button down here and have a look at the planned route. Our Pole 1 Yankee departure is loaded into the FMC, and all of the waypoints via the airway November 601 is also loaded. So that's all looking good. On to the next page, you can see that the flight plan finishes at a point called a bevy. Now the arrival, the ILS and the STAR or the standard instrument arrival should also be shown here, what we're expecting in Edinburgh. But again, a bit of a glitch with the system, it doesn't really show on the route page. But you can check it if you go to departures and arrivals, go to Edinburgh. You can say it's got a NP1 Echo arrival and the ILS-24 is also planned in Edinburgh. So that's good, we have a flight plan there. Moving on then, we will go to the performance initialization page. We just have to enter a cost index here and that will let the FMC know how fast we want to fly in our FMC calculated climb, cruise and descent speeds. We can go ahead and execute that. Nothing more to do on that page. On the thrust limit page, we'll choose full thrust, full climb as well, and onto the takeoff page. So it's calculated a flaps 15 takeoff for us, and our V speeds V1 139, VR 146, and V2 153. So what we need to do now is put our V2 up in the MCP window. Now in the real world you would do a bit more briefing with your colleagues, you will do a bit more checking of the FMC, you make sure every track and every waypoint is correct. So we're going to make this bigger so we can see a little bit better what's going on during takeoff. And there we go. And we're just going to move the ICAS over to the right hand side so we can get a better picture of our track. Having a look at the MCP now, the auto throttle is armed. We've set the V2. The heading for runway 23 left in Manchester is correct at 234. The stop altitude, normally you would verify this on your departure map or your departure plate. It's loaded at 10,000, we'll make it 5,000 to keep it a little bit realistic. Final thing we need to do before we get going is just make sure down here we've got our flaps set to 15, which is what the FMC calculated. So that's all correct and we're ready to go. We'll release the brakes and I'm just going to peek down and find the toga button, which is just here on top of each thrust lever where it says activate toga. There's one button on each thrust lever, and you only need to press it once. You need to press one of them once for the aircraft to go. So we're fully ready now, and go ahead and click that. Thrust levers come up, and we begin our takeoff roll. We use a little bit of rudder to keep the aircraft straight, and we would normally arm LNAV and VNAV on the ground, but we're not going to do that on this occasion because it doesn't really work too well. There's 80 knots. Aircraft is looking good. V1 is an automated call out, and normally your colleague would tell you when to rotate. So we're just going to keep the center line there. V1, the rotate. And we're slowly going to pull back manually to meet the flight directors. We've got a positive rate of climb, so we'll put the gear up. Now, normally we will go for LNAV above 200 feet. We should normally rotate a little bit earlier than that, a little bit higher than that, to around 15 degrees. So the flight model in the flight simulator isn't quite there. It's had us rotating to just under 10 degrees. And I know from experience that's not quite enough. It's also got our speed rather low, close to the clacker at 170 knots. The clacker being the barber's pole there, which would warn us of a stall. So we're above 1,500 feet above the ground. It's looking reasonably stable. I'm going to go ahead and engage the autopilot here by clicking on this button. So you can see we've got LNAV and we've got vertical speed. Just going to reduce that now to about 1,000 feet a minute and increase the speed in our MCP window all the way up to the up speed so we can start retracting the flaps. Now that was a bit of a surprise for the autopilot to go into vertical speed mode. Ideally we'd like to be in toga, VNAV or flight level change. So now the speed is under control. Going to go into flight level change. And we can start accelerating. Alright then guys, so we're above the flaps 15 maneuvering speed, which you can see in the left of the speed tape. So we can go ahead and start retracting the flaps. Flaps from 15 up to 10. We're above the flaps 5 maneuvering speed, so I'll move the flaps past flaps 5 to flaps 1. And I just need to increase the speed. Well, it's actually giving us an overspeed warning now, but we're actually nowhere near the clacker. And the rate of climb is phenomenal. So we'll increase that, we'll increase that speed all the way up to the up speed and retract our flaps all the way up. There we have it guys. 1,000 feet to go. Just tidy that speed up to the up speed. And as you can see, the flap indicator has disappeared from our ICAS display. So the flaps are up. We'd normally go for the after takeoff checklist by clicking this button here. But as you can see, this function is not yet available. So I'll change that back to nav for our first officer. There we go guys. So we're now following our flight plan and we're leveled at 5,000 feet. I've transitioned now to the en route climb. Before we do that, we've just leveled up 5,000. I'll just show you the flight mode annunciator. The auto thrust is in speed mode, and the pitch mode is in alt to hold 5,000 feet. It's a short flight today, and I would recommend around flight level 180 for our flight. So we'll set 180 in the MCP window. We'll verify it in the flight mode annunciator. Once we're happy with that, we'll click on flight level change. So we've got thrust ref for full power, flight level change speed in our pitch annunciation. And now we're at a safe height, we can increase to 250 knots. Normally we keep 250 below flight level 100, but we'll increase it now to 280 knots, assuming that air traffic control has given us permission to do so. And there you have it, guys. That's a quick introduction to takeoff in 787. Points worth mentioning are that it's not, I'd say it's probably around 60% similar to real life. On takeoff, some of the pitch modes, the flight modes, enunciations, and the actual behavior of the aircraft is a little bit far off. We know this isn't a study level model, it's not the PMDG, or it's not the fly-by-wire A320. So guys, take it with a pinch of salt, but that is a safe way to get airborne as long as you keep your speed above the barber's pole and then remember to accelerate it to the up speed. You'll be grand. Guys, it's been great to have you on board and see you in the skies.